You know, angels love us so much that even when people do this kind of test, they still make contact. So if anyone watching doesn't believe, try an experiment. Say, angel, I don't know if you exist or not. Maybe Agif is making this up. I just don't really trust him. Well, let's do an experiment. If you exist, let me know, show yourself, appear, so that I can be sure you are there. Within a week, there will be a sign. This has been tested many times, and then suddenly something changes for the person. Many ignore signs as coincidence, and then comes a second sign, but they are gentlemen, so they won't interfere without our request.
They won't interfere?
They can only interfere if asked. For example, if your calling, your purpose, is like this. And if something threatens you prematurely, they will save and protect you, even if you don't believe, simply because you haven't yet fulfilled your mission. But in other cases, many people cry, suffer, and are tormented, while the angels stand nearby and say, "We settled this matter before lunch."
Anton, have you ever seen an angel? And have you ever communicated with them? Tell us about it.
You know, this term, the specific way that he chooses to pronounce it makes it feel quite uncertain, and it is not clear at all what he actually means to convey. If a powerful angel were to suddenly stand right next to you, if we truly mean that very fiery, intense, and infernal being, which is also frequently called a sur, or a divine suric being from the ancient traditions, you would instantly turn to nothing but gray ash, because they are burning embers. It's exactly like standing right next to a ball of pure plasma, and it is just like reaching out and hugging the surface of the sun. But if you carefully listen to what he is saying and consider the possibility that he's calling some other being an angel, that is, not those very infernal fiery beings who can't even fully manifest themselves in our material world, because they would simply and literally incinerate and burn massive holes in space and matter. If you mean another kind of spiritual being, of which there are plenty here, who make direct contact with people, enter into certain formal agreements with them, and become loyal allies of humans. These beings are described quite well in the texts, their various forms, and the specific ways of how to interact with them. Yes, he is absolutely right. You can make a request to them, and they will reach out to you. In fact, sometimes they do so even without any requests. They appear in a person's perception, especially in dreams. They have a particular fondness for attaching themselves to people, frequently appearing within their dreams. And these are inorganic beings. They are also unknown. So where is the inconsistency here? He uses the term for one being, but judging by the dialogue and the description, he's actually talking about a different being. So what more exactly can I say about this particular situation? If we are specifically discussing the seraphim right now, those very same angels, who are beings made of pure fire, but they definitely wouldn't be able to stand next to you because their energy would burn you. But at the same time, they can.
It is said that they supposedly lower their vibrations in order to be close to a human being. That is, they lower them to the human level so they can become visible to him. Well, I honestly just can't wrap my head around the way that he can still be an angel after lowering his vibrations.
Well, that is not exactly how the process works in reality. It is actually quite similar to suggesting that the massive sun somehow lowers its own natural vibrations in order to be seen by us. Come visit us. No, the sun is in its place and we are in ours. No one goes visiting anyone, even though we perceive each other from a great distance. I am aware that there are actual living people among us who are in constant contact with those celestial angels. But this is remote interaction. It's a strong remote interaction. And in that society, all social relationships are built upon an incredibly strict and rigid hierarchical system. What that means is that, from their perspective, you are not seen as an equal, but rather you are viewed more like a cherished household pet. That's how they treat you. Yes, they will protect you, but you're in a cage. Yes, it's a golden cage, but you still can't get out of it. I've seen that. That does exist. And some people agree to it because it's much easier to live that way. But you're not free. You no longer have any will of your own. You have no choice. You're their toy, but they protect you. Does that exist? It does exist. I would never agree to that in my life. Even if it appeared, I would resist with all my might. I don't need golden cages. That does exist, it's true. Well, again, if I listen closely to what he's saying out loud, I don't see that kind of interaction in his description. He's describing a distinct and separate being. He's describing entirely different interactions, the very ones where you call out loudly into an empty room and someone responds. Well, of course, all day long, these spiritual beings are patiently residing in your room, just waiting for you to finally address them. Yeah, no, it actually doesn't work like that at all. It is quite a serious and complex process. For example, one of my close acquaintances encountered divine angels when she was already a very experienced astral traveler, journeying through all the vast expanses of the infinite universe, and somewhere, while being in her subtle body, not her physical body, but her spiritual subtle body, somewhere deep within the higher realms of reality, she made contact with them, meaning she crossed paths with them. And after that, the interaction began. It's not like you just sit in your room and go, Alia, 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 and they all come flying in from every direction. This is specifically about those angels who truly fit the definition of angel, but there are also inorganic beings. There are beings of a completely different kind who really exist. I could be sitting here right now talking about them, and one might be nearby listening in until I address it directly. This is a fact by God. These are allies that shamans work with quite actively. This is really a shamanic thing. Allies, these inorganic beings. There is a huge amount of information about these allies. You can find it in the books of Carlos Castaneda. He describes them there in quite a lot of detail. Don Juan explains to him how it all works. That's really how it is. I have personally confirmed that the information in Castaneda's books matches reality, and I have come across other shamans, practicing shamans, who have talked about these processes. And what they talked about was more or less the same thing. And what this person is talking about now is very similar to that. But it's not an angel, you see, that's the thing. And yes, you can make a pact with them. Yes, you will exchange certain benefits. Yes, they will take something from you. This is not a free interaction. But it's a kind of interaction that in principle might be acceptable to you. After all, some people decide to build their own house, right? While others prefer to hire a professional work crew, and that crew builds the entire house for them for a fee. There is nothing wrong with that if the person has enough money to pay for the service. Some people can easily afford it. To earn enough for their wife, their child, their grandmother, their grandfather, and even for the dog. And for them, it won't be a financial burden, because they've learned to earn very well. For them, it's not even a question of whether someone will work somewhere. The whole family, including the dog, could be working and still it wouldn't be enough. That's why here you need to understand whether you can actually handle these interactions at all. Are you fully prepared for this specific contract and for signing such a binding agreement? This has a right to exist. These processes are well known. There are shamanic techniques that allow almost anyone to enter into these processes and learn all of this. But I'm not ready to use the word angels. I'll go even further. I know both these beings and other beings as well. And these are by no means the same thing. So on the one hand, what he describes does exist. But the word he uses to refer to these beings, I don't agree with it. These are not angels, these are allies, these are inorganic beings.
But many people believe that every single person is carefully assigned a guardian angel at birth. Well, we've already established that these aren't angels, but perhaps there's some being that will protect a person. And many people talk about, for example, being in an accident and someone somehow prevented them from crashing and they felt as if someone was even carrying them in their arms. Stories like that. Is that your soul? What is it? What can you say about that? It's
your soul. It's you, just on a different level of manifestation. Yes, out of ignorance, inexperience, or under the influence of all sorts of tales and stories, you try to refer to your soul as anything you can possibly imagine. An angel or a guardian. Sometimes people perceive their own soul as the divine. Sometimes they perceive it as a wise man or some saint who helps them, but it's still your soul. It is wonderful, it is beautiful. Sometimes it intervenes and saves the physical body. That happens. It's your soul.
But why does it save the physical body? So is there some point when it's destined to die and when it's not destined to die?
Every single human being has the incredible power of free will. And by using our free will, we can completely, utterly, and thoroughly ruin and destroy ourselves in an instant. And so essentially what you have right here no causality for death. But if you happen to do something that is extremely foolish or reckless, then the complex internal structures of the soul, your very own soul, can step in to help you. You could perhaps call it by a much simpler word. These are your internal doubles, your mysterious doppelgangers, or those various fragments of your consciousness that were separated and tucked away somewhere back during your early childhood. I talked about all this in great detail in the Practical Energy course. I have explained this in great detail at various meetings, events, and seminars. This topic, I have already described it from every angle and perspective, looking at it from every side. If I were to explain this concept more thoroughly, we have our own internal parts that we cannot easily identify as belonging to ourselves because we very quickly degrade and lose this essential knowledge about who we are. That is, in childhood, at 1 year old, 2 years old, 3 years old. For you, it's obvious then, but by 5, 6, 7 years old, you've already forgotten about it. But when this happens to you at 30 or 40, you're like, yes, even God himself has descended to me. But no, it's just you coming to yourself. It's just that you're in the form of a piece of meat who, out of your own foolishness, ended up in a very serious situation, and you need to be pulled out of there because, in principle, you're a good person. Figuratively speaking, there's no reason to destroy you. And you, in the form of energy, consciousness, in the form of an energetic structure, come to yourself, and you pull yourself out of there. Because if the physical body dies, then all these connected parts, all these forms, they will also be cut off from the flow. You could say that this is the structure of the soul. Yes, you could say that. You could call it the soul. Yes, you could say that. You could say it's the divinity within. Yes, you could say that. What difference does it make which word we use? The main thing is the essence, that is you. It's like, here I am, here's my hand, this is me. And there's another me. And there's yet another me. And all of this is me. And so, if in the middle of a fight with a scoundrel who's trying to kill me, this me punches him in the jaw with all its strength, then the scoundrel will fall. But that doesn't mean that God came and saved me. It's just a part of me that protected me. You see? Here's another part that can protect me. Even though throughout my life I don't even use it anywhere, but it can suddenly lash out at someone, at an opponent's jaw, and protect me. But that's still me. The same thing happens on the level of energy. Yes, there are some parts within me, some processes hidden from everyday life, energies, structures, parts of consciousness, deities, whatever you want to call them. You could call them Shakti Devas, who in an extreme situation will leap out and save my physical body. This does happen, it's true. And out of ignorance, yes, I might say, oh, an angel came and saved me, oh, it was this, oh, it was that, it was something else. But then I come and say, that was you. Stop fooling around. Here are some practices for you. Here are some exercises. Here is extrasensory perception. Here is vision, with which you can verify that I am right. And I have had such practitioners. I have had cases when a person would often find themselves in situations where someone would help them. And the person searched, listened, read through it all, and still couldn't figure it out. That was simply the end of it. This person came to me and said, Anton, I want to experience all this consciously, not in some extreme situation, but in everyday life, in an ordinary situation when nothing threatens me. I want to get to know all this, to interact with it. Well, talk to my angel. I said, let's just develop your vision and you'll talk to him yourself. He said, well, okay. I said, I just teach people, I don't talk to a person's guardian angel on their behalf. I understand everything perfectly well right away, but I speak to the person in their own language, in a language they understand. I said, let's just figure all this out together. Let's do this quickly now. And the person practiced with me, did some exercises, and their vision opened up. I said, well, she said, damn, that's me? I said, yes. I said, that's it. We're done with the story about angels who protect you. She said, we're done. That's it. I understand everything. I see everything now. Yes, that's the structure of my flow. That's the structure of my soul. Those are my duplicates. Now everything is clear to me. Everything is obvious. And yes, I can even say more on the internet. Some people tell stories about how, for example, Archangel Michael came to them and pulled them out of the gates, all that stuff. It was their soul that came, pulled them out of there and brought them back into their body. Again, all of this was happening internally.
But why that particular image? Why do they see the image of an angel? And
why that particular image? Because, well, specifically about this story, yes, when Archangel Michael intervened to assist an individual. This was a story shared by an Eastern Orthodox priest. So, in his specific way of thinking, that is perfectly normal and accepted as a fundamental truth. He is used to describing the world in that way, as that is what he is accustomed to. That is why he called his own fragment of consciousness and the divinity within his heart Archangel Michael. And the soul is not upset about this, because it understands perfectly well that when a person is in the realms of the material world, it's very difficult to figure out how the spiritual world is structured. It's very difficult, but it is real but possible. If you are attempting to understand spirituality, your internal structures and your parts, through reading books, through watching videos, or through questions and answers, there is absolutely no chance of success. If you try to understand all of this by developing your extrasensory perception, then everything becomes obvious to you quite quickly.
95% of people don't even realize that within them lies a power that grants access to any possibility, a successful business, strong relationships, health, and self-fulfillment. It allows you to hear your soul and remember your true nature, your divine nature. This power is your energy. When it is blocked, you feel tired and upset. But when your energy flows freely and without obstacles, you are full of strength and capable of achieving any goal. Everyone can feel the movement of energy in their body. Are you ready to see this for yourself right now? I've prepared a practice where, in just 3 minutes, you'll become aware of the state of your energy and be able to activate the inner power that has been blocked for many years. The practice is available for a limited time. Right now, follow the link provided below the video and unlock the incredible source of power within yourself.
Are you simply high? That is exactly why certain individuals receive this little spark of awareness and it ultimately saves them, while others do not.
Because for some people, there are critical situations teetering on the thin edge between life and death. Just some fleeting foolishness, right? And the person, in principle, does not deserve to die. But someone else repeatedly tries to destroy themselves, and in the end, everything works out for them, and no one wants to save them anymore. On the contrary, it's the flow cuts them off. It's the same thing, like when you cut your finger, you'll take care of it, you'll tend to it, you'll try to heal the wound. But if that finger is already crushed to dust, then most likely they'll amputate it. No one is going to bother with it anymore. And so, people who have pushed themselves to the state of crushed dust, their soul, they can't be saved anymore, they're simply amputated. That's it, the path ends there. But if in general everything is fine, you just got scratched or a splinter got stuck in you, why wouldn't you be saved? Yes, of course, save them. And there's another point, it's not obvious and it's unpredictable. On the physical level, we have to invest a significant amount of time in order for real changes to occur. It is exactly the same on the psychological level, but on the energetic level, we can change instantly. And so when a person, whether it happens suddenly or perhaps not so suddenly, that is, when someone pushes themselves to the very edge between life and death, and they are already starting to fall into death, they are already beginning the process of self-destruction. Suddenly, for some reason, they might change their position, and on the energetic level, this change will happen instantly. That is, he will become viable again. And at that point, neither the body nor the psyche can pull him out of it, because time is needed, and there is no time. But energy, consciousness, can pull him out of there, because all of this is beyond time. And that's why these forces begin to use their abilities and pull him out. This also happens, and by the way, it happens quite often. For example, when everyone boarded the plane took off and started to fall. Why did it start to fall? Because everyone who boarded it was already dead, they were already non-viable, they needed to be destroyed. Their souls had made these decisions, but while the plane was falling, one person, just one, changed. He stopped being someone who was non-viable. His viability manifested itself again. And he, by some miracle, is the only one who survives. The plane is completely wrecked. There are such cases, and there are many of them. They really do exist. Here, one person managed to change in time. He managed to regain his viability, to change his principles, his value system. He opened up again. He let energy flow into himself again, and naturally he was saved, because there was no reason to kill him. And if this happens really quickly, in a certain moment, well, yes, then miracles happen. That's when superpowers manifest. In general, siddhis cannot manifest without very significant reasons for it. It's the same as how a fighter can't show all his skill if he's just hitting a punching bag. Only a real fight, real life, a matter of life and death. That's the moment when all these miracles happen. And when you're just sitting there, nothing threatens you. It's just a fairy tale about power.
Yes, that's real power. When you can fully control these processes.
If you keep learning, you'll succeed in the end. The one who walks has a chance to complete the path, let's put it that way. But not everyone who walks will reach the very end of the path.
All right, thank you very much for your answers. Friends, all the links to Anton's courses, masterclasses, and other events. Anton always has a lot of different activities you can find below this video. We'll leave the links there. All the best.